Canada's top court heard final arguments yesterday in a case reviving former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's role in the We Charity scandal. And it could bring sweeping changes to how Canadians hold their elected officials accountable. Democracy Watch challenged the 2021 decision by the Federal Ethics Commissioner, who cleared Trudeau of any conflict of interest. A decision its co-founder believes should be overturned. And Duff Conarcher joins me now to explain why. Duff, good to speak with you.
Thank you for your interest.
Before we get into the why, first maybe just explain the We Charity scandal for my viewers who are not familiar with it.
Yes, what happened was back in spring of 2020 when COVID hit, the federal government was looking to do something to support youth, wanted to spend money on internships, a program of some sort that youth could apply to and get some income from. And in the end, the government decided to hand the contract to administer that whole internship grant program to We Charity. At the time, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, was an ambassador for We Charity. And also they had other family ties, as both Justin Trudeau's mother and brother had spoken at several events. And as well, the founders of We Charity and Justin Trudeau had both said they were friends. And so that raised issues of why Justin Trudeau was participating in this decision to hand a grant to his wife's charity and to his friends when it was tens of millions of dollars of public money. And obviously there's a conflict of interest there.
This isn't the first time your organization has attempted to challenge the Ethics Commissioner's findings. You previously lost in federal court of appeal. Explain that decision and why, you refused to accept it at the time.
Yes, well, what happened with this situation is the conflict of interest law sets up the Ethics Commissioner, as does another law called the Parliament of Canada Act, and sets the commissioner up as an independent watchdog who's supposed to be ruling on whether the prime minister, cabinet minister, or top government official has violated the conflict of interest law. And the Federal Court of Appeal looked at that and said, well, there's also another provision in the ethics law that says you can't challenge the ethics commissioner in court on issues of an error of a fact finding or an error of legal interpretation, an error of law by the commissioner. And so we have to decide that issue first. And the Federal Court of Appeal ruled against us on that issue, said the ethics commissioner can't be challenged in court because they're under Parliament. And if you want to appeal a decision of the ethics commissioner, go back to Parliament. And our whole argument and point was that's absurd because this ruling is about the Prime Minister. We're supposed to go back to Parliament and say Parliament override and overrule the Ethics Commissioner's finding that the Prime Minister broke the federal ethics law. And so we then appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada that Federal Court of Appeal ruling, and that's what the hearing was about in this past week.
Yeah, the Supreme Court will now decide whether you can mount this legal challenge, and its decision could really have some widespread ramifications for everyday people. Can you explain what's at stake?
Yes, well, this provisions, these measures in the federal ethics law that say you can't challenge the ethics commissioner's rulings in court for errors of fact or law, that's a very common type of measure that legislatures across the country have put in all sorts of different laws that apply to the agencies, boards, commissions, and tribunals that enforce laws like landlord and tenant laws, social welfare laws, immigrant refugee laws, environmental protection laws across the country. There's about 100 of these kind of agencies, boards, commissions, and tribunals in each province, and about 150 of them at the federal level. And so our case raises this big issue about whether those kind of provisions where a government and the legislature and politicians have said, we've set up these decision makers, you can't challenge them in court on various reasons, whether that's legal or constitutional, or should the courts always be able to rule on these decisions? Should you always have a right to go to court and challenge these decisions? And that's the big systemic issue, and why 10 or so citizen groups from various areas, environment, immigrant refugee advocacy. They intervened in the case on our side. And that's the sort of bigger issue that underlies this, that the Supreme Court will also decide, in addition to deciding whether we can challenge the ethics commissioner in court.
A lot on the line here. When is a ruling expected?
Usually the Supreme Court takes a few months to several months, depending on the complexity of the case, to issue rulings. So it's not going to come anytime soon. There's 9 justices, and a majority of them have to agree to a final ruling. So at least 5 of the 9 they'll be discussing it and taking all the submissions that were made by ourselves, the federal government, and 15 different intervening organizations and provincial governments. And so I expect it'll take at least a few months before we'll see a ruling on this.
All right, we'll wait and see. Duff, thanks so much for your time tonight. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you. Take care.